The small research ship Nexus Dawn moved slowly through the empty darkness of space, its metal hull gleaming under the light of a yellow star. Inside the ship, Dr. Kesh looked at his computer screen with growing confusion. His 6 arms moved quickly over the controls as he checked the readings again and again. "This cannot be right," he whispered to himself. Kest was a Vorthok, a species that looked like walking crystals. He had spent most of his life studying dead civilizations across the galaxy. Today he was visiting the Sol system to study the humans, a species that everyone knew had destroyed themselves 300 years ago.
Ow.
Dr. Kest called his assistant from across the bridge. "The atmospheric readings from the 3rd planet are very strange." Kest H floated over to look at the data. According to every official record in the hegemony database, Earth should be a dead world. The humans had fought terrible wars, poisoned their air and water, and finally destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. It was a sad story that teachers told students across the galaxy, a warning about what happens when a species cannot control itself, but the readings on his screen told a different story. Earth's atmosphere was clean and healthy. The planet showed signs of advanced technology and large populations. Cities glowed with light on the dark side of the planet. Ships moved between Earth and its moon in regular patterns. "This is impossible," Kestage said. "The humans died out centuries ago. Everyone knows this." His assistant, a young Vorthok named Jenko, looked worried. "Sir, what if our records are wrong? What if the humans never died?" Kesh laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Do not be silly. The hegemony has ruled this part of the galaxy for 300 years. If humans were still alive, we would know about it. They were a primitive species that could barely travel between planets. They had no advanced technology, no unified government, no real military power. But as they moved closer to Earth, more strange readings appeared on their screens. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter was full of activity. Large objects moved in patterns that suggested mining operations or construction projects. Some of the objects were huge, bigger than any ship in the hegemony fleet. Sergenko said, his voice shaking, "I think we should leave. Something is not right here." Before Kesht could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Main screen lit up with red warnings. Their sensors had detected something that made Kesht's crystal body turn pale with fear. Ships were appearing out of nowhere. Not just 1 or 2 ships, but dozens of them. They seemed to materialize from empty space, as if they had been hiding behind some kind of invisible barrier. The ships were sleek and deadly looking, with smooth hulls that reflected the starlight like mirrors. They moved with perfect coordination, forming a battle formation around the Nexus Dawn in seconds. Where did they come from? Genko whispered. Kesk stared at the ships on his screen. Their design was familiar. He had seen pictures of them in old history books. They looked like the ancient human ships from 3 centuries ago, but these vessels were clearly far more advanced. They radiated power that made the Nexus Dawn seem like a child's toy. A communication signal cut through their systems. The voice that came through their speakers was calm and confident, speaking in the old human language called English. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Lee Jun of the United Earthship Prometheus. You are in Terran space. State your business immediately." Kesht. Hands shook as he reached for the communication controls. Terran space. The humans called their territory Terran space. But humans were extinct. The hegemony had been using these star systems for mining and research for 300 years. "This is Dr. Kesta, the hegemony research vessel Nexus Dawn," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We are here on a scientific mission to study the remains of the human civilization." There was a long pause. Then the human voice spoke again, and this time there was something cold and dangerous in it. "Remains? Doctor, I think you have been reading the wrong history books?" More ships appeared on their sensors, hundreds of them, all bearing the same blue and white symbols that Kesht H recognized from ancient human flags. They surrounded the Nexus Dawn completely, their weapons powered, but not yet firing. "Sir," Jenko said quietly, "what do we do?" Kesht looked at the overwhelming display of human power surrounding his small research ship. 300 years, ago, humans had been a young species that could barely build simple rockets. Now, they had technology that could make entire fleets appear and disappear at will. "We listen," Kess said, "and we try to understand how we could have been so wrong about everything." The human captain's voice came through their speakers again. "Doctor, you and your crew are safe, but I think it is time the galaxy learned the truth about what happened to humanity. We did not die out. We simply chose to disappear for a while." As the Nexus Dawn was escorted toward Earth by the human fleet, Kesht H realized that everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans was about to change forever. Captain Lee Jun stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the alien research ship through the main viewing screen. His dark eyes were calm, but inside he felt the weight of 3 centuries of preparation. Today was the day humanity would announce to the galaxy that they had returned. "Sir, we have confirmation from all fleets," reported Lieutenant Park Sojin from her station. "Operation Homecoming is ready to begin." June nodded slowly. Across the galaxy, 67 human fleets were positioned near star systems that had once belonged to Earth. For 300 years, the galaxy had believed humans were extinct. Today, they would learn how wrong they had been. "Send the message," June ordered. Within minutes, the same announcement was broadcast simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Human ships appeared near hegemony worlds, mining stations, and military bases. The message was simple. "This is the Terran Commonwealth. We have returned to reclaim what was ours." The reaction was immediate and predictable. Panic spread through hegemony communication networks. Emergency meetings were called. Military commanders scrambled to understand how an extinct species had suddenly appeared with advanced technology and massive fleets. On the alien research ship, Dr. Kest watched in amazement as more human vessels joined the formation around them. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, far beyond anything in the hegemony fleet. The humans had not just survived, they had evolved into something incredible. Captain Lee Kesht H said over the communication channel, "I do not understand. Our records show that humanity destroyed itself in wars and environmental collapse. How is this possible?" June's face appeared on the screen, and Kest was surprised by how young the human looked. But his eyes held the wisdom of someone who had seen too much. "Your records are incomplete, Doctor," June replied. "Yes, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We came very close to extinction. But instead of dying, we made a choice. We decided to disappear from the galaxy until we could return as equals." While they spoke, the Galactic Council was meeting an emergency session on the capital world of Nexus Prime. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from 47 different species, all talking at once in dozens of languages. Air was thick with fear and confusion. Ashios, the leader of the Nethi species, called for order. His gas-formed body glowed with authority as he addressed the assembly. "These humans demand recognition of territorial claims that expired 3 centuries ago. Their former worlds have been properly developed by superior species." The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some species had built cities on former human worlds. Others had established mining operations in human star systems. The idea of giving up these profitable territories to a species that was supposed to be extinct was unthinkable. "The humans were a primitive species," declared the Vorthok representative. "They had no real technology, no unified government, no military power. Even if some survived, they cannot possibly challenge the hegemony." But reports were coming in from across the galaxy that contradicted this belief. Human fleets were appearing everywhere, and they were not asking for permission. They were simply announcing their presence and their intentions. After hours of debate, the council reached a decision. They would offer humanity a small sector on the outer rim of the galaxy, a few dozen star systems far from any important trade. Routes or resources, as they believed, a generous offer for a species that should be grateful to exist at all. The message was sent to Captain June, who read it aloud to his crew. The bridge of the Prometheus fell silent as the humans absorbed the insult. After 3 centuries of preparation, After building the most advanced civilization in galactic history, the hegemony was offering them scraps. "Sir," said Communications Officer Kim Min-ho, "how should we respond?" June looked around at his crew. These were the descendants of humans who had faced extinction and chosen to survive. They had unified their species, developed incredible technology, and prepared for this moment for 300 years. They had not returned to the galaxy to beg for acceptance. "Send this message exactly as I say it," June ordered. "We tried diplomacy. We offered coexistence. You had your chance to remember us as friends." The transmission was sent to every hegemony world simultaneously. Across the galaxy, alien leaders read the message with growing unease. There was something in those simple words that suggested humanity was not planning to accept the Council's offer. On Nexus Prime, Archon Zephyr dismissed the human response as empty threats. What can they do? They are one species against 47. They have been gone for 3 centuries, while we have built the greatest civilization in galactic history. But intelligence reports were already coming in that contradicted his confidence. Human ships were not just appearing, they were moving. Battle formations were taking position near critical hegemony installations. Communication networks were being monitored, and in some cases, quietly infiltrated. Captain June stood on his bridge, watching as tactical displays showed human fleets across the galaxy. Each fleet was in position, waiting for orders. The time for talking was over. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Across the galaxy, human ships began moving toward their first targets. The hegemony would soon learn that the species they had forgotten was about to remind them why humans had once been feared. Even in their primitive state, the galaxy was about to discover what humanity had become after 3 centuries of preparing for this moment. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came when the hegemony's main communication network simply stopped working. Not destroyed by weapons or damaged by attacks. It just turned off. As if someone had found the master switch for the entire galaxy and flipped it. On the capital world of Nexus Prime, Archon Zephyr floated in his command center, surrounded by panicking officers. His gas-formed body flickered with angry colors as he tried to contact his fleets across the galaxy. Nothing worked. The communication arrays were physically intact, but they refused to function. "How is this possible?" he demanded.
"Our networks
"Are protected by the most advanced security systems in galactic history." His aide, a nervous Vorthok named Keshmel, checked the readings again. "Sir, it appears that someone has accessed our core communication protocols. They have not destroyed anything. They have simply taken control." 3,000 light-years away, Commander Choi Jae-won stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the planet New Geneva grow larger on the main screen. This world had been a human colony 3 centuries ago, home to 2 million people who had built farms and cities under the light of a golden sun. Now it was a strip mining operation, its beautiful landscapes torn apart by alien machines seeking rare metals. "Sir, we are approaching the planet's defense grid," reported his tactical officer. "They have orbital weapons platforms and shield generators." Choi nodded calmly. "Take us through." The crew watched in amazement as their ship simply passed through the planetary shields as if they were not there. The massive defense platforms turned to track their movement, but their weapons would not fire. One by one, the orbital defenses went dark. On the planet's surface, Garrison Commander Keshmel received an impossible message on his personal communication device. The signal had somehow bypassed every security system, every encryption code, every protective barrier his species had developed over centuries. "This is Commander Choi of the Terran Liberation Fleet," the calm voice said. "You have 30 minutes. To evacuate all military personnel from New Geneva. The people you have been enslaving for 3 centuries are coming home." Keshmal's first reaction was anger. How dare these primitive humans make demands of the mighty hegemony? He immediately ordered his forces to battle stations and prepared to crush these upstart aliens. 20-9 minutes later, his weapons simply refused to work. His shields flickered and died. His ship's engines shut down one by one, leaving his fleet floating helplessly in space. Not a single shot had been fired by the human forces in the colony's central square. An elderly human woman named Mrs. Kim sat on a bench, watching the sky. She had been born on New Geneva 70 years ago, had lived her entire life under alien occupation, and had never seen a ship bearing the flag of Earth. Her grandchildren played nearby, speaking the alien language they had been forced to learn in school. Suddenly, sleek ships appeared in the sky above them. The vessels were beautiful, with smooth hulls that reflected the sunlight like mirrors. Most importantly, they bore the blue and white flag that Mrs. Kim remembered from old pictures her grandmother had shown her. Tears began streaming down her face as she realized what she was seeing. Earth had not forgotten them. After 3 centuries of silence, humanity had returned. The ships landed gently in the square, and human marines emerged. They wore advanced armor, but carried their helmets under their arms, showing their faces to the colonists. The Marine commander, Sergeant Oh Yoo-jin, walked directly to Mrs. Kim. "Ma'am," she said in perfect Korean, "I am Sergeant Oh of the Terran Commonwealth Marines. We are here to take you home." Mrs. Kim could barely speak through her tears. We thought Earth had died. The aliens told us humanity was extinct." "We never died," Sergeant Oh replied gently. "We were just waiting for the right moment to come back. And now we are here." Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of worlds. Human fleets appeared at former colonies, mining stations, and research outposts. In every case, the pattern was the same. Hegemony forces found their weapons and defenses mysteriously disabled, while human forces landed peacefully to reunite with long-lost colonists. The psychological effect on the hegemony was devastating. Their military commanders had spent centuries believing they were the masters of galactic warfare. Now they discovered that their most advanced weapons were useless against human technology. Worse still, the humans were not even trying to fight. They were simply taking what they wanted, while the hegemony watched helplessly. On the industrial world of Kepler-4, for to be. An entire hegemony fleet surrendered without firing a shot when human ships appeared and politely requested their withdrawal. The alien commanders realized that resistance was pointless when their enemies could disable their technology at will. Reports flooded into hegemony command centers across the galaxy. Humans were not conquering worlds, they were liberating them. Every planet they visited had been a former human colony or territory. The aliens who had been exploiting these worlds for centuries were being asked to leave, and they found themselves powerless to refuse. Within a week, the hegemony had lost control of over 50 star systems. Their mighty fleets were fleeing before human forces that seemed to possess impossible technology. The species they had dismissed as extinct primitives were systematically dismantling 3 centuries of alien rule. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson. Humanity had not just survived, they're near extinction. They had used those 3 centuries to become something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined possible. Admiral Song Hae-jin stood in the command center of the massive ship Retribution, watching screens that showed the complete collapse of hegemony forces across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The alien fleets that had ruled space for 3 centuries were retreating everywhere, their weapons useless against human technology that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. Admiral, reported intelligence officer Yoon Tae-ho, "The hegemony prisoners are ready for questioning." Song nodded and walked to the interview chamber. Inside, 5 alien commanders sat around a metal table, their different species unified by the same expression of fear and confusion. There was Keshmal the Vorthok, whose crystal body had turned a pale blue color of distress. Beside him sat Commander Zethok, of the Nethes, his gas form flickering with nervous energy. The others represented different species, but all wore the same look of beings whose entire understanding of reality had been shattered. "I do not understand," Keshmal said, as Song entered the room. "Our records show your species destroyed itself 300 years ago. Nuclear wars, environmental collapse, social breakdown. How are you here?" Song sat down across from them, her face calm and patient. "We nearly did destroy ourselves. You are right about that. But sometimes when a species faces complete extinction, it has 2 choices: die or change everything about itself." She gestured to a wall screen that showed images of Earth from centuries past. The aliens saw a world covered in pollution, torn by wars, dying from environmental damage. "This was our world 300 years ago. We were killing ourselves and everything around us. Most species would have died. We chose differently. What did you choose? Asked Zethok, his translated voice carrying notes of desperate curiosity. Unity Song replied simply. We realized that our greatest enemy was ourselves. Our different nations, our different beliefs, our different ways of life, all of it was dividing us when we needed to be together. So we made a decision that no human species had ever made before. The screen changed to show images of Earth as it was now. The aliens gasped at what they saw. The planet was beautiful beyond description, with clean oceans, healthy forests, and cities that seemed to grow from the landscape itself rather than being built on top of it. We became one people, Song continued. Not Korean, not American, not Chinese, not African, just human. We took all our knowledge, all our resources, all our energy, and focused it on a single goal. Which was? Keshmel asked. Survival. But not just survival. We wanted to make sure that humanity would never again face extinction. Every technology we developed, every decision we made, every child we raised, all of it was aimed at ensuring that our species would endure forever. Song stood and walked to another screen that showed human ships across the galaxy. We spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. We unified our governments, our military, our science, our culture. We developed technology that you cannot understand because it came from a species that had faced its own end and refused to accept it. The prisoners looked at each other with growing horror. They were beginning to understand what they faced. Not just a species that had survived, but one that had transformed itself into something unprecedented in galactic history. Your weapons do not work against us because we studied your technology for 300 years, Song explained. We watched. Your wars, your trade routes, your communications. We learned everything about how you fight, how you think, how you organize yourselves. Then we built counters to every advantage you had. Form flickered with panic. But the numbers. We have 47 species, thousands of worlds, millions of ships. You are just one species. Song smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Numbers only matter when both sides are playing the same game. We are not playing your game anymore. We're playing a game where extinction is not possible. She walked to a final screen that showed the true scope of human preparation. The aliens saw images of massive construction projects hidden throughout the Sol system. Shipbuilding facilities the size of moons. Weapons testing ranges that stretched across entire asteroid belts. Training facilities where generations of humans had prepared for this moment. We did not just survive our near extinction, Song said. Used it. We took every lesson from our failures and made ourselves stronger. We channeled all our destructive impulses into creating the ultimate defense against extinction. The room fell silent as the aliens absorbed this information. They had expected to face a primitive species that had barely survived its own mistakes. Instead, they had encountered a civilization that had been forged by the threat of extinction into something that could not be stopped. What happens now? Schmel asked quietly. Song returned to her seat and looked at each prisoner in turn. You learn that the galaxy has a new reality. Humanity is not asking for permission to exist. We're not begging for acceptance. We are simply informing you that we are here, we are staying, and we will never again allow ourselves to be threatened. With extinction, she stood to leave, then paused at the door. The species you knew as humans died 3 centuries ago. What returned to this galaxy is something much more dangerous: survivors who have learned that the only way to ensure survival is to become unstoppable. The prisoner sat in stunned silence as the door closed behind her, finally understanding the true scope of what humanity had become. The final battle of the war that lasted only 3 weeks took place above Nexus Prime, the capital world of the hegemony. Admiral Song Haijin stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history assembled to face humanity's return. The numbers were staggering. Over 3,000 hegemony ships filled the space around Nexus Prime, representing 47 different species and centuries of military advancement. Massive battleships longer than cities floated alongside smaller vessels, their combined firepower capable of destroying entire star systems. Facing them were exactly 60 human ships. "Sir," reported Captain Lee Jun from the Prometheus, "the hegemony fleet is demanding our surrender. They say we are outnumbered 50-1. Song looked at the tactical display showing the enemy formation. Each alien ship was marked with its species, weapons, capability, and defensive systems. Her officers had studied these designs for 3 centuries, learning every strength and weakness. "Open a channel to the hegemony fleet," Song ordered. The face of Archon Zephyr appeared on the main screen, his gas-form body glowing with confidence. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was filled with officers from dozens of species, all united in their certainty that numbers would win this battle. Admiral Song Zephyr said in his translated voice, "This is your final chance to surrender. You face the combined might of the greatest civilization in galactic history. You cannot win." Song's expression remained calm. "Archon, you still do not understand what you are facing. This is not about winning or losing. This is about ensuring that humanity is never again threatened with extinction." "You are 1 species against 47, Zephyr replied. "You have 60 ships against 3,000. Mathematics is not on your side. Mathematics assumes both." "Sides are playing by the same rules," Song said quietly. "We stopped playing by your rules 3 centuries ago." Communication ended. Song turned to her crew, seeing the same calm determination in their faces that had carried humanity through 3 centuries of preparation. To begin the demonstration, she ordered. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations to come. The human fleet did not attack in the traditional sense. Instead, they simply advanced toward the hegemony formation at a steady pace. The aliens opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams, missiles, and exotic weapons struck the human ships. The weapons that had conquered a galaxy, that had kept the hegemony in power for centuries, hit their targets with devastating force and did absolutely nothing. The human ships continued forward, their hulls unmarked by the attacks. They passed through the hegemony's most powerful shields as if they were not there. Their weapons, when they finally fired, did not destroy the alien ships. They simply turned off their power systems, leaving thousands of vessels floating helplessly. In space, the battle lasted for minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, the entire hegemony fleet was disabled. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply turned off, like someone had pulled the plug on their power supplies. The aliens sat in their dark ships, emergency lighting casting strange shadows on their faces as they realized the true scope of their defeat. Hours later, Song stood in the great council chamber of Nexus Prime. The surviving leaders of the hegemony sat before her. Their various forms slumped in defeat. Some wept, others stared in shock, all of them trying to understand how their mighty civilization had been defeated so completely. "We did not come back for revenge," Song began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We came back because this galaxy forgot what we were capable of when threatened. You mistook our absence for weakness, our silence for defeat." Gestured to a display showing human territories across the galaxy. The map no longer showed the small rim sector the Council had offered humanity. Instead, it showed dozens of star systems in the galaxy's prime regions, all marked with the blue and white flag of Earth. "The Terran Commonwealth is now a permanent reality," Song continued. "We will take back what was ours. We'll ensure that no species ever again has the power to threaten humanity's existence, and we will make sure that the galaxy remembers this lesson." Captain Lee Jun stepped forward, carrying a data tablet. "These are our terms," he said, handing the device to the former Archon. "All human territories will be returned immediately. All human colonies will be liberated. All resources taken from human worlds will be restored." Zephyr looked at the terms with his remaining dignity. "And if we refuse?" Song's smile was cold. "Then you will discover what happens when a species that has learned to survive decides that other species are a threat to their existence." The chamber fell silent. The message was clear. Humanity was not asking for permission. They were stating facts about the new reality of galactic civilization. Years later, in a small classroom on a distant world, a young alien student raised her hand. "Teacher, why did the humans become so powerful when they returned?" The teacher, an elderly Vorthok who had lived through the war, considered the question carefully, because they remembered that the greatest danger to humanity has always been extinction, and they decided to become the one thing that could never be extinguished. Outside the classroom window, a human patrol ship moved silently through the star-filled sky, its hull bearing the simple flag of Earth, a reminder to the galaxy that some species, when faced with extinction, do not simply die, they evolve into something that can never be threatened again. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was no longer just a memory, they were eternal.